because World Backup Day is coming up, I wanted to do a series of videos just talking about how to use the best practices to get all your data backed up and the different methods around it. In this part one, we're going to talk about the 3-2-1 backup strategy. I'm going to show you it in a couple of different ways. So in my example, it'll be more like a 5-4-3-2-1 backup, but we'll show you how that looks with the different methods and options to get your data in multiple places so that your data is considered to be backed up. So one of the methods is to use hybrid backup sync, and another method is to do snapshots. So first of all, what I've got here is I've got two NAS. I've got a TS251D where I've got just under 10 gigs of data to represent something that I'm backing up. And I've got a TS-364 that I'm going to be using as a backup target for some of the things I'm going to show you today. So those are the two NAS I'm using. So the TS251D here is only connected with a gig Ethernet network. That's all it has. I do have the TS-364 on a 2.5 gig network, but it won't change anything. It'll only run at a gig because that's what the other NAS it's talking to is running at. So here on the TS251D, all the data I'm going to be backing up today is in this ISO share, and I've got three Linux ISO files. But imagine they could be folders full of data, lots of subfolders. It really wouldn't matter. I'm always going to select the root share of ISO as the source of the backup data for all of the different options. One thing I do have enabled on this NAS is snapshots. So if I come into the storage and snapshots application, go down to storage and snapshots, we can see that I have a couple of snapshots taken already. I've got them set to happen every hour on the half hour. I only just enabled it for the demo, so there's only two there right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to first do a snapshot replication across to the TS364. So the snapshots here that I've got set up, if I go to the schedule snapshot, you can see the sort of amount of recovery points that I have. So I'm taking a snapshot every hour on the half hour, and my snapshot retention is set to the smart versioning option. So it'll keep 24 hourly snapshots, 7 daily, 4 weekly, and 12 monthly snapshots. So that's what's enabled there, and that's all applied. So that's how it's keeping itself backed up internally, easy restore points, things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down to the snapshot replica section. I've got a fairly happy face there saying I've got local protection. So this would cover me for things like accidental deletions, things like that, maybe malware, things like that, ransomware. This is going to protect me from those types of things on device. But if I want to have it in case the device was to fail, drive failure, something like that, and I want to get the data somewhere else, you can create a snapshot replication job. So for this, you must have two QNAP NAS. They've got to be running the same OS, so it's got to be either QTS to QTS, which is what I've got here, or QUTS Hero to QUTS Hero. Hero has another option called SnapSync, which I'll cover in a later video in this series as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Create a Replication Job at the top. It's asking what I want to back up. There is only one choice. I've only got one volume on this NAS, so I'm going to say OK. It's just confirming it's the one with two snapshots there. Click Next, and I'm going to allow it to detect. So I've got a few NAS turned on here, so I want to select the TS-364 once it's gone off and found them all. I think it'll find the backup NAS, which is for my other setup first, but I'll just use the drop down and I'll say I want to go to the TS-364. The TS251D being localhost, that's where the data is. So I'll say TS364. I'll type in an account that I've got over there that we can talk to, and I'll just click test. Just make sure everything's set up, everything's working. You do have to have SSH enabled on the destination NAS for this to work, port 22, so you do have to have that service enabled over there first. It's letting you know that there is sufficient space over there, so we're going to be able to create this. So if I click next, I'm going to keep at least 30 copies. I'll leave that by default. So it's just giving me an overview of what the other NAS looks like. I've got just under 8 terabytes total. The first volume there is using about 2 terabytes. That's all I've sized it to. So there's plenty of space there available for my snapshot replication to go over there. So I'll click Next. You can choose to have it on a schedule, which I'll do. I'll say once a day. Yep, that's fine. So long as the NAS is okay. You can set this to go as often as every 5 minutes if you want. That's an option that's there. But you can set it to do any schedule that you want. So even every hour. I'll set it to go every hour. Okay, so that's everything done. Run on a schedule. You can make it run once, set no schedule if you wish. So I'm happy with all those settings. So I'm going to click next. You can do things like encrypt the transfer, compress it, limit the speed of this transfer. You can export the source data to something like a USB hard drive on the first run to go manually import it over there rather than using the network to do it. As I'm only doing a few hundred gigs here, 267, I'm going to let it run just across the network. So I'm going to say next, and I'm going to say execute the backup immediately. So it's going to immediately start this when I click finish. So while snapshots themselves don't use much space, when you do a snapshot replication, we need the whole volume over there. So we need a sort of master copy of the data. So on the local NAS here, it's only what's changed since the last snapshot. Since the first snapshot. That's the size of the total snapshots within the retention period that you've set. So they don't use up much space on the local NAS, but it does have to send the data across to the other one. So here I've now got a happy face, full protection, so everything's absolutely hunky-dory there. We can see that the backup has started, sending the data across to the other side. So that's just going to keep running until was it 267 gigs, I think, of the volume I've got on this NAS is copied over there. So we'll leave that running. That's sort of step one. That's my very granular restore option there. So I've got snapshots basically every hour that I can restore locally from, which is always my preferred method if I can. If there has been a catastrophic failure though, all my latest snapshots every hour are going to be synchronized over to the other NAS. So that's also an option that you can use. So this is one way to do 2 copies of your data. Everything's on one NAS, everything's on another NAS. So that's sort of step one of what we've got set up here. So if I now come to the hybrid backup sync app instead, so that snapshot replication is happening in the background. So over here I've got a couple of options. So one of them I've already done a little bit of setup because there's a lot of copy and pasting of keys, and that's the Backblaze B2. So this is the offsite backup I'm going to use. I've chosen a cloud provider for that as an option. You can use many other options. You could host a QUTS cloud instance, for example, up on, say, Amazon AWS or Azure. You're able to use those as different options to go over there if you wanted to have it QNAP to QNAP effectively. So you can have a cloud-hosted QNAP instance as well. So the option I'm going to choose now is backup and restore. So there's a backup now with new backup options. Now before I create the backup job, I have to tell the other NAS, in this case it's the TS364, that I want it to take backups from this NAS. So if I go over to the TS364, I'm going to open the same Hybrid Backup Sync 3 app, but I need to come to the Services menu on the left-hand side. So here we've got a few different server options that we can enable. It's the RTR server that I want to enable. So I'm going to click Enabled, and now it wants me to have set a password for the shared RTR server account. So I'll type in a password for this one. So this is unrelated to any of the other NAS accounts. I've got the port set at 8899, which is fine, and you've got some other options there that you can take if you wish. I'll just leave it fairly simple and leave it default. But port 8899 and the password I've got is really all I need. The IP address or name of the NAS would also be useful to keep in your memory for this next bit. So I'm going to say, OK, we'll save that information. So it's going to enable the RTR server on the destination NAS. So that's done. So now if we come back to the TS251D, we can create the backup job and it will now be able to connect to that NAS. So we'll say we want to do a new backup job. I'm going to select that ISO folder. So that's the ISO folder and everything that's in it. I've got no subfolders in there, so it's just the ISO folder I'm going to do. Click Next. And now it asks what type of backup job you want to do. So here I could select the offsite to Backblaze, or for now, I'll just do the remote NAS option. So it's the name remote NAS, so I can tell it to go and search, so it will detect other NAS just like it did with the snapshot replication. So here we've got a few options. I'm going to say the TS364, so I'm going to say something like TS364 backup, something like that. Actually, I should say TS251D backup because that's what this NAS is. So that's where that data is going to go. Now I'm going to use the RTR server account. So this is typing the password that I just created over on the other NAS. And if you click the speed test option, it should let you know that everything's connected and working. So it's going to tell me how fast the connection can go. Right now it's pretty low because it's syncing across everything with that replication. So a lot of the bandwidth is being used out of the just over 100 meg possible is being used by the snapshot replication that's probably still happening in the background. So we can see that there, the snapshot replica is still happening. So I'm fine with that. So we're going to click create as a backup target. So now I'll be able to see the storage locations on both NAS. So there's the TS251D backup. So I'm going to select the remote NAS. Now it's been added. Now it wants me to pick the destination folder over there, so I can have different folders. I can create folders within it if I wish. So I do happen to have over there a folder also called ISO. So if I come over here and have a look in the file station section, we can see I do also have an ISO folder with some things inside it. So rather than just dumping it straight into there, what I'm going to do is I'll create a folder over on the TS251D. So within the ISO, I'm going to create a folder. So I'll say something like TS251D backup. Click plus. So that's now creating a folder over on the other NAS. So there it is, TS251D backup. And I'm going to choose that as my destination. So we'll click OK. You can name the job something here if you need to. So you've got something more applicable to the backup job. If you're creating lots of them, it's definitely important to set that up. So it's going to send the data, total size 9.29 gigs, which is just the files I've got there. I'm happy with that. We'll click next. You can set schedules as well if you want. For the purpose of this, I'll create one. Let's do this. So you can click scheduler, you can click the plus symbol. You can say periodic, daily. So I'll say I'll have a daily backup done at midnight. That's fine for me. You can link it to other jobs. So if you've got multiple jobs in the list, you can say set a schedule on the first job, and then you can have this one run after that job, so that you're not running multiple jobs at the same time. And you've got other options for version management, data integrity checks if you wish down the side as well. And I'm going to tick the box for backup now. So this runs immediately. Different filters and options and policies that you can set. So there's different things. You can even specify a specific network card. So if you've got multiple network cards on your NAS, you can choose a specific one. So I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to create the job. Okay. So it's just reminding you can use data integrity check if you wish. So that's now going to start the backup of that 10 gigs of data. So this is going to go from the TS251D over to the TS-364. So that's happening. So now if we go check the running background tasks, we can see we've got two tasks currently running. We've got the larger snapshot replica of the 267 gig volume that I've got, as well as the backup job that's now happening. And you can go into these backups and see status information. So if you click on report within your backup job, there's a little details tab you can click, and it gives you loads of information on what's left, how long it thinks the backup's going to take, current speed, things like that. So you can get some good information from there. So that's really taking care of the sort of the 2.1 side of the 3.2.1 backup. So we've now got two copies of our data on two separate things at our on-site location. So now I want to do an off-site backup as well. So in this same section here of the backup options, so if I go here and pull this out, we can see the backup and restore. So I'm going to go backup and restore, and I'm going to create a new backup job. Same folder again, so I'm going to pick that same ISO folder, click next, but this time I'm going to select the Backblaze B2. Now it's not asking me to set this up because I've already added this Backblaze B2 account that I created earlier and copied all the keys and things that it needs for the bucket that I've created. So that's over there, so I've created that, and I'm just going to select it. Oh, sorry, you have to select which bucket name. I created one called TS251D. So you can choose what size of the files that are going up there. You can do it larger file sizes if you wish. I'll leave it at the default of 100 meg, and then we can click select on that one as well. So now it's going to show me the destination folder, so I'll just pick the root of the TS251D folder there. You can create folders if you wish. Click OK, and then I can click next. So I'm going to put it into the root of the Backblaze, and again you could call this something else. So I've got backup job 1, which is backup to another NAS, and backup job 2 is now backup to Backblaze. So I'm going to click next. You get the same options here, different schedules and things. So if I create here another daily schedule, so you can pick it to go at a certain time, or you can do, as I said earlier, run it after the other job. So I can say backup job 1 is going to run first. After that's run, I want it to run this one. So you can select run after backup job 1. So that's fine. So I'll click next. I'll click backup now actually. Obviously this is going over the internet, so it'll be much slower than one's going across the LAN. Again, you get all the same options that you can use. You can use things like QuDedup if you wish, so you can have the data deduplicated. I'm going to untick that because none of the data that I've got is duplicated, but you do have options to enable it. Click next, and then I'm going to click create. So now once all those backup jobs run, everything's effectively done. I've got all my data going off to different locations. So I've got 2 ways to get it to the other NAS. So we've got the replication that's happening. So we've got the snapshot replication to get the data over, which is much more granular than, say, once a day. And that's happening every hour. So I've got lots of restore points there. I've got the backup job happening going across to the other NAS. So that's backup job 1 that we've got created here. And I've also got backup job 2, which is going to Backblaze. So we can see the destinations here. Destination is another IP address, which is 10.10.0.195, which happens to match the TS364 here. And then if I come across to the TS251D, we can see that backup job 1 is actually successfully completed, which was only the 10 gigs of data that was transferring across to the other one. So that's now transferring across. So that's really how to get 3-2-1 backup jobs done. So, you know, the data is just taking a little while to get across there. So I can't show you the complete result straight away. I'll maybe just hold off till everything's finished here, and then I'll show you all the success ticks and everything, happy that it's all complete. So we'll cut to that with the magic of video editing. But yeah, that's how you get your data 3-2-1, so 3 copies of your data. So in my case, 1 copy is on the TS251D. 1 copy is over on the TS364. I've actually done that twice in 2 ways. So I've got a snapshot replication as well as a backup task with hybrid backup sync. One of the backups is on site, so you've got nice quick restores. So if you are using a cloud provider, sometimes it's very cheap getting data into them and storing it, but they'll charge you many times, many times more to get the data back. So it's always preferable. Number one, it's faster to get your data from a local storage. It's also much cheaper as well than pulling it from your cloud. The cloud is really your absolute disaster. Perhaps there's been a flood or a fire at the location where the NAS are stored. So that's what the cloud option is really good for. So hopefully that's covered everything with the 3-2-1 backup strategy. This would be the ideal situation where everything is everywhere, or as many places as you can be. Obviously not everybody can do the cloud backups. It is largely limited to how fast your internet connection is, to how fast you can get the data off site. So mine's going fairly okay there. If we click into the report and have a look, we can see that it's already copied a gig up to the cloud. So not everybody's able to get data moving at speeds that would be good enough to do a cloud backup, but this is just definitely an option to get it there. Other options could be things like a USB hard drive that you physically take off site. So perhaps your NAS is at the office, you could have a rotation of a few USB drives where some of them are back at, say, the director's home, financial controller's home, something like that, whereas there's only one backup disk in the office every day and it rotates in and out so that not all the data's in one place at one time. So if you don't have fast enough internet, that's always another option to get your offsite backups done. So if anybody does have any questions, leave them down below. And again, we'll cut back to the end here where we've got ticks on everything, just so you can see everything is fully backed up, everything's happy, and we'll come back to that at the end. Okay, and we're back with the green ticks now, so everything's been a success. The local backup, the backup to Backblaze B2, sorry, I should say the remote backup there to the other NAS. And for anybody that was quick, maybe noticed a little error popping up with hybrid backup sync in the end of the last part. So that's just showing that I had the schedule set up to run after backup job 1 completed. It completed, but I'd already started backup job 2, so it was saying it couldn't start backup job 2 after backup job 1 because it was already running. So that's why there was a little error there. We can just clear that one away. But everything's been backed up. You can go in and check backup reports. So if I go look at the Backblaze one, for example, you can go click in, check the details. It gives you an idea of the transmission speeds, basic information, how long it the total time took. So in that case, it was about 30 minutes on my connection here to get the roughly 10 gigs of data up. But that's the end of the 3-2-1 backup. So 3 copies of your data, 2 of those copies on site as well. So it's a really good way to have a backup routine done so that you're able to get your data protected as well as possible. And we've also got the snapshot replication, which is another option to get it between 2 QNAPs if you've got 2 QNAPs at the same site. Okay, again, if there's any questions, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll get back to any questions you have in the comments section down below. Thanks a lot. Bye.